Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay updated with our latest video.
Sean Connery, after an absence of 4 years, what brings you back to James Bond?
Well, I started 3 years ago a trust in Scotland, Scottish International Education Trust. A press conference, I think it's on September 4th or 5th, with the announcement of the actual amount. And with this...
I'm glad you like my work. It looked pretty good from where I was standing. They gave him a lot of money, but he turned them down. After a secret fight that almost killed him, Sean Connery broke up with James Bond for good. The people in charge of the movie treated him like dirt, and paparazzi followed him around all the time. He was so mad that he gave away his whole paycheck to get away. They begged him to come back with $5.5 million, but he slammed the door in their faces. We now know the ugly truth about why he left. Sean Connery was born on August 25, 1930, in the Fountainbridge neighbourhood of Edinburgh, Scotland. His full name was Thomas Shaw Connery. He was the older of 2 boys. Joseph's dad worked in a plant and drove a truck. His mother, Euphemia, worked as a maid. The flat they lived in was only 2 rooms and wasn't connected to the rest of the building by water. People from the middle class lived in Fountainbridge, which was full of breweries and factories. It was hard to get by, and money was always tight. Connery had a job by the time he was 7. He delivered milk for St. Cuthbert's Cooperative Society. He had to get up early and learn all the shortcuts in Edinburgh for this job. When he was popular years later, he caught a taxi driver trying to charge him too much. Instead of fighting, he showed the driver the fastest way to get around the city, which surprised the driver with how much he knew. When his younger brother Neil was born in 1938, things got even worse for his family. In order to help, Connery took on more tasks. He grew quickly, so people called him Big Tam. He quit school when he was 13 to work full-time as a milkman. His family needed the money more than he needed to go to school. Connery joined the Royal Navy when he was 16 years old. He meant to serve for 12 years, but things didn't go as planned. After only 3 years, he was sent home because he had serious stomach ulcers, which ran in his family. He got 2 tattoos while he was in the Navy. One said "Mom and Dad," and the other said "Scotland as always." They kept him connected to his roots and were always on his skin. When he got back to Edinburgh, he needed work, so he took any job he could find. He gave out coal, cleaned coffins, worked as a lifeguard at Portobello open-air pool, and even stood naked for art students at the Edinburgh College of Art. He needed these jobs to pay the bills, but he wanted more. He became interested in weightlifting when he was 21. He began working out at the Dunedin Weightlifting Club in Edinburgh. Learning from past gym teachers in the British Army, his height of 6 feet 2 inches and strong build made him stand out. In 1953, when he was 22, he went to London to participate in the Mr. Universe pageant. He entered the tall man division, which was for people taller than 5 feet 10 inches in. He heard someone talking about South Pacific auditions while he was in a bodybuilding challenge. He hadn't done it before, but he went for it anyway. He was shocked to get a small part in the chorus. He couldn't sing or dance, but it didn't matter. His part had grown by the time the show got to Edinburgh. He eventually got the part of Lieutenant Buzz Adams, which raised his pay from 12 to 14 shillings per week. The extra cash helped, but South Pacific was more than just a job. The American actor Robert Henderson saw promise in him and got Connery to read works by Shakespeare and Ipswich. Henderson also persuaded Connery to take lessons in how to execute a will. Connery's thick Scottish accent made him interesting, but getting rid of it would help him get more jobs. Around this time, he became known as someone you should not mess with. 6 gang members tried to rob him one night in Edinburgh, but he beat them off by himself. The gang then left him alone. This toughness would later help shape his role as a tough guy on screen. His playing career got off to a slow start. He got his first credit for a movie part in No Road Back, 1957, as Spike, a small-time gangster who had trouble speaking. It wasn't a big deal, but it made people notice him. He did extra work to make ends meet. At one point, he even watched Peter Noble's kids. During the war, he had an affair with Lana Turner's character in Another Time, Another Place, which came out in 1958. This was his next big part. His big break should have come from this movie, but the most exciting thing happened off-screen. Turner's boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, was a gangster with ties to the Los Angeles mob. He was sure Turner was seeing Connery instead of her husband. He showed up on set one day with a gun. Connery didn't think twice. He grabbed Stompanato by the wrist, turned it around, and made him drop the gun. The criminal was dragged away by security. The event made the news. Some even said Connery had to be careful in Hollywood because he had made enemies in the mob. The movie got him a lot of attention, but it didn't make him a star. He wasn't ready to give up, though. In 1957, the BBC put him in Requiem for a Heavyweight, a live TV show about an injured boxer whose career is over. Connery wasn't their first choice. Jack Palance turned down the part. Director Alvin Rakoff wasn't sure Connery could act, but Llewellyn Hill, who later married Rakoff, said women would find him attractive. That was enough to get the part. The show played live on March 31, 1957. There were no tries again. Everything could go wrong with one mistake. Connery played Mountain McClintock, a boxer who was sad about the end of his career. The part needed both hardness and weakness. Critics saw what Connery did and agreed with him. People who heard him and the Times both said it was one of the best performances of the night. A young Michael Caine was one of his co-stars in Requiem for a Heavyweight. There, they were just two players who were having a hard time. After many years, they became close friends and worked together on the movie The Man Who Would Be King Sean. It was a big deal when Connery became James Bond, but it wasn't an easy road. Ian Fleming, who wrote James Bond, was not happy when he was cast in Dr. No in 1962. He thought Connery was too rough and badly put together. He considered Bond to be a well-bred English gentleman, like Cary Grant or David Nann. Connery, who had a Scottish accent and looked rough, was the exact opposite. But producers Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman saw something special in him. Fleming even called him an overgrown stuntman and said he didn't think he could speak good English. There was a mix of danger and charm about Connery that made him stand out. Broccoli thought that Connery could become the perfect Bond with the right help, so Terence Young, the director, took on the task. He exposed Connery to high-class restaurants, custom suits, and the high-class lifestyle that would define the character. When Dr. No came out, everything changed. People loved Connery Bond, who was sure of himself, tough, and effortlessly cool. So pleased was Fleming that he changed Bond's background in his 1964 book You Only Live Twice by giving him Scottish ancestry as a nod to Connery. It was rare for a movie actor to affect the book version of a character, but Connery did it. His performance as James Bond set the bar for decades to come. After Dr. No did well, Bond movies got bigger and scarier. In 1964, Goldfinger owned a game farm. It had classic Bond features like the Aston Martin DB5 and bad guys who were bigger than life. The movie made $125 million around the world, which was a lot of money for its time. Thunderball, which came out in 1965, took things even further with fight scenes underwater and a huge budget 3 times as big as the first movie. Things were more dangerous, there was more going on, and Connery was in the middle of it all. His portrayal of James Bond changed spy movies for good. Before him, spies on TV and in movies were either smart, well-read people or tough guys who didn't have any charm. Connery had both. He was smart, quick-witted, and physically intimidating. He could seduce women, outsmart bad guys, and handle terrible fights while staying calm. His Bond set the bar for action stars to meet, influencing films like Mission Impossible and The Bourne Identity. Connery also pushed for what was real. Big stars at the time didn't do their own acts very often. In Dr. No, he almost got hurt while driving quickly under a building crane, but there were limits. He was terrified of spiders, so when they were shooting the famous tarantula scene, he wouldn't let the spider crawl on him. They put up a glass window to keep him away from the spider, and then they brought in a stuntman to finish the shot. By 1967, he had grown tired of playing James Bond. The character became a worldwide star after he played it in 5 movies. He wanted to show that he was more than just a spy in a suit. But Hollywood and the public wouldn't let him move on. The constant press coverage made things worse. While he was in Japan shooting You Only Live Twice, the press followed him around. Some people even took pictures of him in the bathroom, which was more than just a breach of privacy, it was a clear sign that his life no longer felt like his own. His anger showed on screen. You Only Live Twice was a huge production with bigger action scenes than ever, but Connery didn't seem as interested. Fans and critics both saw it. He was still given the lines, they still looked the part, but there was something missing. It wasn't any better when he wasn't on camera, some people said he looked bored. He was worn out from all the talks and the stress of being the franchise's face. He was a big part of Bond's success, but he was beginning to wonder if it was all worth it. The question of money came up again. Connery made about $1 million for You Only Live Twice, which was a lot of money at the time, but the Bond movies were making a lot more. He thought he should get a bigger share of the money, but directors Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman wouldn't raise his pay. Their relationship got tense, and the fight became public. Connery felt like she wasn't getting enough attention. He became famous because of the movies, but they also took over his life. He wasn't just upset about the money in the part. He didn't like how much it had come to define him. "I've never liked that damn James Bond," once said, "I'd like to kill him." That wasn't a joke, it showed how badly he wanted to get away. Even his close friend, Michael Caine, told Connery not to talk about Bond. He didn't want to, he just wanted to move on. When the shooting was over, Connery made up his mind, he was done with Bond. The makers had to find a new actor, so they picked model George Lenby, who had never really acted before. He played the lead role in On Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1969, but the change wasn't easy. The production team and Lazenby had a fight, and by the time the movie came out, he had already chosen to quit. His Bond was for one movie. Even though Connery was no longer with the team, they were having trouble moving forward without him. They had to find a new Bond quickly, but Roger Moore was busy shooting The Persuaders, so they looked elsewhere. Even American star John Gavin was named the next 0007. United Artists president David Picker, on the other hand, had a different idea. He knew that there was only one person who could make the magic happen again. After You Only Live Twice, in 1967, Connery quit the family business. He was angry at the producers and sick of being typecast. He didn't want to come back, but Picker went around Harry Saltzman and Albert R. Broccoli, the producers, and made Connery and his lawyer an offer they couldn't refuse. The next thing that happened was one of the biggest deals in Hollywood history. Connery agreed to come back for a record-breaking $1.25 million a year. That was more than Dr. No's whole budget in 1962, to give you an idea. Besides that, he got 12.5% of the movie's cash sales. Diamonds Are Forever made $116 million at the box office, which gave Connery an extra $14 million. United Artists backed 2 non-Bond projects that were part of the deal. The best part was that Connery wouldn't have to work with Saltzman and Broccoli at all. The studio didn't waste any time advertising his return. It was clear that Sean Connery was back. Trailers and posters for his return got fans excited, but something wasn't right. Connery looked older and moved more slowly. His acting wasn't as exciting as in his other Bond movies. People in the audience and critics alike saw that Connery had done what he was paid to do, but it was clear he was no longer interested in the part. Connery didn't keep any of his paycheck, though. Instead, He started the Scottish International Education Trust in 1971 with the money he got from Diamonds Are Forever. He did this because he had a hard childhood and wanted to help others avoid the same problems. The trust helped bright Scots who couldn't afford college by paying for their tuition, books, travel, and other school-related expenses. Connery worked with famous people like racing great Sir Jackie Stewart to get it off the ground. Despite the movie's success at the box office, Connery expressed his dissatisfaction with Bond. He had never liked the attention that came with being 007. He was unhappy with how the series was run and felt trapped by the part. It cost $5,500,000 to make him come back for Live and Let Die in 1973, but he turned it down right away. For the time, that was a huge amount of money, but Connery didn't want anything to do with Bond. He agreed that Roger Moore should take over, but he didn't like how the series had changed to be funnier and lighter. The story of Never Say Never Again began many years before the movie came out. In the late 1950s, Kevin McClure, Ian Fleming, and scriptwriter Jack Whittingham worked together to make a James Bond movie. The idea never went forward, but Fleming took their screenplay and turned it into his 1961 book Thunderball without giving McClure or Whittingham any credit. That led to a big court case in 1963, when McClure said he owned the rights to the Thunderball story. The court agreed, saying that he could make movies based on Thunderball as long as Fleming kept the rights to the book. He then co-produced Thunderball with Eon Productions in 1965, but he couldn't make another Bond movie for 10 years because of the law. As soon as that rule was lifted, he began making plans for his own James Bond movie. That work led to the 1983 movie Never Say Never Again, which was a remake of Thunderball. But it wasn't easy to make because Ian still owned most of the Bond brands. McClory had to stay away from anything that could get her sued again. Spectre and Blofeld were okay for him to use, but he couldn't use QM or the famous gun barrel opening. McClune kept fighting for more power even after the movie came out. He said that his script had created the cinematic Bond and claimed some ownership of the character. The courts didn't agree with him, but he kept suing for decades. His fight with Aon didn't stop until he died in 2006. The legal battle that had been going on for more than 50 years ended when his heirs sold Aon the last of his Thunderball rights in 2013. One big surprise in Never Say Never Again was seeing Sean Connery play James Bond again. After Diamonds Are Forever in 1971, he swore he would never play the part again. But director Jack Schwartzman made him an offer he couldn't refuse. $3 million up front, which is about $8 million today, plus money for casting, script review, a cut of the profits, and creative power over important parts of the movie. Connery had always had disagreements with him about artistic choices. He was free for the first time in his life thanks to this deal. The movie had a lot to do with Connery. He helped choose Klaus. She plays Largo, and Kim Basinger plays Domino. He worked closely with director Irvin Kershner to set the mood and write the lines. The title, Never Say Never Again, was even a joke about what he had said in the past. It was his wife Micheline's idea to tell him that he should never say never. At 52 years old, Connery played a Bond who was more experienced than Roger Moore's Bond, who was smoother and more fun in Octopussy. The movie did well at the box office. It made over $160 million globally, showing that Connery's Bond could still draw people in. But even though the movie did well at the box office, making it was not fun at all. The set was full of trouble behind the scenes. Schwartzman was a good lawyer, but he had never produced a movie before. This meant that Connery and assistant director David Tomlin had to do a lot of work to make sure everything went easily. The writing was yet another mess. The first writer was Lorenzo Sample Jr., who is known for writing Flash Gordon. He quit because he didn't agree with the ideas. When British authors Dick Clement and Ian Lefrine took over, they had to be very careful not to use anything that could lead to another case from Ian. Lawyers had to look over every word that was said, which took a long time. Things got worse because of budget troubles. The underwater parts of Thunderball were hard to shoot and cost a lot of money. When it was found that Connery's body double looked a lot younger than him, some action scenes had to be shot again. All of these problems made Connery angry because he thought that too many people working on the movie were untrained or sloppy. Sean Connery was more than just a spy, as shown by his work after James Bond. Connery played Jimmy Malone in the 1987 crime film The Untouchables, which was directed by Brian De Palma. Federal agent Elliot Ness, played by Kevin Costner, tried to catch the notorious gangster Al Capone in the movie. Connery played a tough Irish-American police officer who taught Ness a lot. He was the heart of the movie because of how tough and charming he was in his role. People liked him, and reviewers said nice things about him. Connery won the award for Best Supporting Actor at the 1988 Academy Awards. He won one Oscar in his whole career, and that night he was already on stage giving out an award when his name was called. The crowd gave him a standing ovation for both his win and his many memorable roles over the years. Connery added his own style to The Untouchables as well. One of the most famous lines in the movie, "Bring a knife to a gunfight," wasn't even in the script. He made it up on the spot, and it became one of the most famous lines in the movie. The movie did well at the box office, making $16.2 million around the world. After 2 years, Connery joined another big hit. He played a younger Henry Jones in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1989. The part was a great fit. Steven Spielberg, the director of Indiana Jones, has always said that James Bond was an influence on the movie. It was an honor for Connery to play Indy's father in the movie, which showed a different side of him. He played a strict but likable professor who was obsessed with the Holy Grail. One of the best things about the movie was how well he got along with Harrison Ford as their father's son. Connery also came up with funny parts. He made up one of his best lines, "She talks in her sleep," on the spot, and the whole cast and crew laughed out loud. Spielberg liked it so much that he left it in the final cut. The movie made $474.2 million around the world, making it the highest-grossing movie of 1989. A movie award was given for Best Sound Effects Cutting.